This is Your Pain Game podcast, where we talk about the game of living in and with chronic pain and trauma, getting to the heart of how to heal. I am your host, Lyndsay Soprano. On this show, I plan on discussing with doctors, chronic pain patients, holistic practitioners, loved ones, and anybody that is interested in having their voice heard in the chronic pain and trauma world that we live in. When I was a little girl, I couldn't sleep. And those of you that have listened to this show know that I've been an insomniac forever. I could never self-regulate. I couldn't handle life as I knew it around me at all. And as a little girl of like 9, 10 years old, you don't necessarily know why you're unable to do that. I knew that I was filled with energy that I couldn't allocate appropriately. I felt out of control all of the time. And it's part of why I couldn't sleep, because I was scared all of the time. I was scared to go to sleep. And honestly, I was afraid to be awake too. It's kind of sad when I say that out loud. And one of the coping mechanisms that I did to manage this, I don't know, for lack of a better term, this darkness inside of me, this loneliness that came in at night in particular, my coping mechanism was leveraging the creativity that was within me. So what I did through all of the hours of the night is my parents gave me the 4 walls and the ceiling that I was in and said, you can do whatever you want to in the space. So they gave me paintbrushes and they gave me magazines that I could cut out flowers or pieces of art. And I literally painted and designed my living space all day, every day as a little girl to try to help figure out what was going on with this unbridled energy that I had. I needed to do something with a colorful brush, right? Colorful brushes of strokes of this beautifulness in the middle of the evening. And my parents would find me moving furniture around, trying to give myself this special spot that would make me feel safe. And I never found it. And what it ended up doing is it developed these like OCD tendencies, right? Which is completely now in my world. Everything is labels facing out and color coordinated and alphabetized and all of it. And it takes a lot out of me. And I'm still trying to figure out 100% where that comes from. But I know that safety is part of it. And when you've gone through childhood trauma, teenage trauma, adult trauma, adult trauma, I mean, I don't know how many levels of it that I can hit. We develop these mechanisms to cope through to cope through the things that we've been through, things we think we've gone through, the things we think we're going through, and the things we think we're going to go through in the future. It's this worry, this anxiety. And with that comes this creative juice. And I have got somebody super juicy for you today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you today to my guest, Jenni Grover. Here she is. My God, she is the most creative and colorful, sexy guest that we have had to date on this show. And I am so excited to have you here, babe. Welcome to the big show.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful story you just told. It really took me to a place. I went to my childhood bedroom and had visions of all the things that I did to try to create safety. And creativity was a big part of that. So I love it.
Yeah. And when we're not given those opportunities to express creativity, for people like myself and none like Jenni and many others that are listening and that I know in my life, that this colorful part of us cannot be stifled. And that is just the most amazing thing about this. So let's just introduce you. So Jenni is a wellness coach who cares deeply about the intersection of craft and health. And that's what we're talking about, this colorful, joyful part of our well-being. And she has clients that she coaches in regards to their physical, mental, social, creative, and spiritual concerns, all through creativity. She's a lifelong writer, and she's got 35 years of experience in print, broadcast, and online media. And in a past life, if you guys have probably seen her, she's been on the History Channel of Modern Marvels, and you can look it up. So if you have like cable TV, who has cable TV anymore? I mean, quite frankly. If you are an insomniac, unlike myself and others, you have seen her for sure on TV. She has lived with multiple chronic illnesses and chronic pain since she was a young little lady since 1997. So that's basically the same time as us, guys. and has devoted much of her life to advocate for those like her. And she's got a book as well, and we're going to get into that later. So I don't want to talk anymore about me. I want to talk about you. So let's start talking about why creativity is such an integral part of our wellness practice. And let's roll out the red carpet for you, babe, and take it from here.
Thank you so much. I love being creative, and I've been a creative person since I was a little kid. And this is something that if listeners take nothing else away today but this, I want them to remember that you're born creative. You're born from an act of creation, and you are born with innate creativity. That is who you are. You are designed to make and do and think and connect. When we're little kids, this stuff is like really easy to connect to. We're in school, they hand us a box of crayons, even when we're in junior high. Well, back in the day, they handed me a typewriter. I guess I had I had a Mac. I had an old, giant
like an Apple
Mac.
IIe.
An Apple IIe is what I had. I wrote my first novella on that computer. But, today they probably hand you an iPad or something. But, when you're a kid, your teachers, your family, your friends likely reinforce that to some degree. And then we become adults, and it's all about coloring inside the lines. And it's all about following the rules, keeping to somebody else's standards of what is supposed to be. And if you're like me and you have pink hair, well, okay, things are changing now because it's not as weird to have pink hair.
No, it's not.
But if you want to be in the corporate world, or if you want to have kind of what I call like a straight job, lots of tattoos and nose piercings and colorful hair is still kind of, not cool in certain environments.
It's a little taboo. We're getting there, though.
Yeah, we're getting there,
yeah.
Which I'm happy about. But
me too.
Yeah, as adults, we're not always encouraged to use our creative side, and it can kind of wither and die. And I am on a mission to make sure that everyone in the world has access to this truth that they are creative, that they can tap into that. Whether they are like me, I'm a quilter, whether they have a giant bookshelf of quilting fabric behind them, or if they just have like 5 colored pencils and a piece of paper, you can be just as creative as me if you allow yourself to play and tap into that childlike energy.
Yeah, and because creativity is not just, to your point, it's not just like I'm a quilter or I am a painter or I am a writer. It is whatever you want to create that feels creative to you. And that can be like my nephew right now. He's living with my sweetie and I right now, and he's really interested in his e-bike and getting creative on how he can start his own little business and how he can help other kids make their bikes better, right? Because it's summer and I'm entrepreneurial. So I'm trying to give him a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit, which I know he has in him, but he's being creative about that. He's like, what do you think about this, Aunt Lyndsay? Like, should I do this? Should we do that? What do you think about this? And really asking these creative questions to help him with outlet. Because right now, at his point in life right now, he's going through some stuff. And going through some stuff could lead him this way or it could lead him this way. And so we're trying to guide him towards the this way, which is more of the creative side of it. Even though you wouldn't think about creativity and building motors or building bikes or building cars, it's incredibly creative to do the things that you want to do that are aftermarket or after whatever's there that's been given to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anytime we can take anything, any mundane thing or any standard kind of thing and make it creative. So sometimes when I work with my coaching clients, I have them go to their sock drawer and I ask them to commit 15 minutes to playing in their sock drawer. And that means arranging your socks by color or texture or pattern, or picking colors of socks and putting them in the drawer next to each other, or making a little...
To me.
I know. I know, because you said all of your labels all face the same way, that you are into
my
this.
My sock drawer does not need anybody to touch it, so step away. It's perfect.
Okay. What about the undies drawer? Because that's always like the
perfectly
next step.
Folded. Continue on next.
So we play like we may take a sock and make a sock puppet out of it and like act out a scenario, or there's lots of opportunities to get weird and silly and playful. And it's funny, like some clients are so resistant to it because they're just like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And I'm like, the point is you allow yourself to just tap into this creative energy. You're allowing yourself to play. That's the point. The point isn't production, which is like so much about Well, let me say. So a lot of people think about creativity as like making a thing. You have to make a thing and have a product that is your like a painting or a quilt
And
or a
something
piece
has to
of
come
jewelry.
out of it that we can display in a museum.
Yes.
No.
Yes, yes, yes. No, that's it. That's the thing that we get wrong so often is like we think we need a finished product to show off, but the creativity is the process or the practice or even like a lifestyle that you move through. So you can play with socks and that's very creative and then you can fold them back up and put them in your drawer, but you've given yourself those few minutes to get silly.
Well, but so many people have misconceptions of what that actually is like what would be the reasoning behind doing X, Y, and Z creatively for them? Like what are they going to gain from that? Because they're going to be embarrassed by doing something like that, or they're going to feel silly doing that, or what? There's this like ego that comes into play. When we're
Yes.
talking about that, we're like, leave ego at the door. And ego can mean whatever it can mean to whoever it is. Look it up. It is not just what you think it is.
That's right.
That's your ego speaking.
No, we want to release people of that because
Right.
when we let ourselves play, we're tapping into our innate energy. And that is really getting to the core of who we are. And we're also experimenting. And that's teaching us that we can be courageous and that it's okay to try something and have it not be successful, that it's not the end of the world. And we are putting things together in unusual ways, which reminds us that we have lots of different kinds of resources at hand all around us at any given time. And sometimes when you're creating, like if I'm quilting with friends, then we're connecting with people and we're feeling a shared sense of purpose or some support or just validation that we're a human being worthy of someone spending time with us. Like, so those little creative acts, even if we don't produce something, can give us so much. We're talking empowerment and ideas and courage and permission. And so it's not just about making the thing, it's about tapping into who you are and letting yourself express yourself in a bigger way, you know?
Yeah, we're all driven to like perform, like you're saying. Like there's always got to be this. Well, I did all of this today, and I should have a perfect bowl made on this kiln that I like did this whole through. I used to do a lot of ceramic stuff, so I was immediately when you're talking about that, my creative outlet when I was younger was creatively was in building pots and doing all of that, and then painting and singing, of course. But, when it comes to people feeling insecure about trying new things, especially when it comes to a creativity side of it, where you've got somebody that's like, I'm a corporate guy and I do this, this, and this, and I'm in finance and I got this, but I've got all of this mishigas that I've got to get rid of. And I've got all of this baloney going on. And now you're telling me that I'm going to like go throw a pot or I'm going to go make a quilt or I'm going to go like, what the fuck are you ladies talking about here? How can we take that ego that we talked about? How can we take that ego and let it sit aside for a while? And why is that so beneficial for us, especially when you're talking with people that have come from trauma?
Oh, yeah. Well, as I have, and I know that you've had your experiences, I'm sure so many people listening have. When someone's feeling really stuck and they're feeling like it's not worth it or they can't see the benefit to taking that creative step, allowing themselves to play, I ask them what they're afraid of. And usually they're afraid of judgment. They're afraid they're going to look stupid. They're afraid they're going to look silly. And so when someone's really scared, I say, well, why don't we start with just you? You don't have to show me what you make. You don't have to show anyone. You can journal, you can doodle, you can make that sock puppet out of your undies or your socks. You can do whatever you're able to tap into, whatever feels accessible. Let's start with a baby step. And you don't have to show it to anyone. And often that gets people started. And then the next step might be like if I'm coaching someone, the next session I might say, why don't we try making something together? Or why don't you show me something that you've made or drawn or whatever? And so then that's one safe person that they've already built a trust with. And they know that I'm not going to think they're silly or stupid. And then we can talk that through. And in the process of making and showing it with me, we can have that conversation where we start to identify what it is they're afraid of. Like what's the fear factor there? we need to baby step into that sometimes. We need to start really small and with very low stakes stuff, Like I'm a quilter. I make these giant projects. I make very personal projects. They're getting shown publicly now. I didn't start there. I started with a little tiny thing that only my best friend and my teacher saw. And then I started with something bigger. And then I joined a guild. And then I had people telling me that my work was worthy and helping me. And then I got courage. I mean, it took years to get courageous about showing my work. I only showed my first quilt in a show last year, and I've been quilting for 10 years. So I am a slow mover. I need to baby step into things. So even a person who is so devoted to creativity like me, it took me a while to ease into my work, like showing it publicly. So I just want to say that out loud for anyone who's listening who thinks that like I just jumped like cannonballed into this creativity pool. Like I dipped my toe in. You know what I mean?
Well, I always cannonball no matter what I do. And I splash everybody and then I have to apologize for it. And then I get back out of the pool. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to step a toe in first instead this round. But I already got some of the big splash that I learned from pretty quickly.
Yes. And some of us work like that. And sometimes people need to throw some stuff at the wall and see what sticks and then back up and refine it. I mean, we all have our process, but that's a thing that we need to remember too, is that we're all going to approach this in different ways. And there's not a wrong way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you for stating that, because when it comes to this is the scariest thing that I've ever done, is doing this show, because it was like, I have to cannonball every single moment when I come in here, and I'm not sure what's going to happen, and I'm not sure. And that's part of I like getting into trouble. I like a little mischief. I like a little unknown, a little mystery. And so I like that about this process for me.
Yeah.
I can prep as much as I want to. I mean, I do my little outline about things I want to like kind of sort of make sure I talk about. But at the end of the day, I kind of like going in fairly blind to a certain extent, because I don't want to come in prefabricated to what I'm going to talk about. I mean, obviously we've got our ideas of what we've talked about in meet and greets and stuff, but this is the scariest cannonball that I've ever done. And I do it every day.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've had to work towards accepting the process for what it is for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not easy because I'm such a perfectionist.
I was just going to say, how is perfection playing a role in your process?
It's not. And that's why this is such a scary thing for me, because it isn't as, this is what Lyndsay's doing, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it, and this is the time that this is. I have had to let go of all of that, which was a huge creative challenge for me to do.
Oh yeah.
But it also was the best decision that I made, and it was accepting the work that I was doing from a creative perspective, because this is creativity. Come on, guys! I mean, we're doing a podcast. This is creative too. But I mean, just because we're not painting, we're painting pictures through our words. I mean, we're painting.
That's right.
We're painting experiences through the words that we're saying to you guys. And so that's part of the creativity journey that I'm on. And it's helping me process pain and trauma, as well as release it through these episodes, which is the same thing that I'm asking my guests to do. So if I'm asking my guests to do it, I can't be an asshole and not do it back.
Yeah, for real.
I'd be a shitty host, man.
Well, and the thing is, like, you're doing a few things that the most successful creatives do. Like, you have parameters. So you have an outline, you have technology, we have a schedule, you do a meet and greet so you know who you're getting, you do a little bit of research, but you don't overdo it. You have parameters. And so a lot of really successful artists set parameters for themselves to work within, because that creates like a safer container to play in. They feel that they've got that structure, like a scaffolding almost, that supports them. And then they know they can get weird inside of it. So even like Lisa Congdon is a beautiful surface design artist that I really love. And she has this thing where there are a couple colors that she just never uses in her work. She has a very limited, like I've never seen purple in her work. She's got parameters. Yeah, she's a super dynamic, colorful creator. But she has set these limits for herself, and then she can play within them. And so some people need that. Some people don't want any limits. They don't want any guidelines. They just want to free ball it. They don't want any.
They don't want to color in between the lines.
That's right. And then some people need a lot of structure. So they want to set a certain schedule for themselves, a window where they do nothing else. And that's what they do every single day. And they're going to create X amount of work and it's going to be X size and this color and whatever. And that works for them. And so when we think about people who've experienced trauma, creating that sense of safety and that structure is really important because when we've lived with trauma, as I have and you have, and so many people have, we lose control. We're in a situation or we're in a life for a period of time where we don't feel a sense of agency, where we feel unsafe, where we know that we'll be harmed if we don't act or say a certain thing. And so we're constantly, I'll just speak for myself. When growing up, I was constantly in a state of fear and nothing felt safe. So then as I got older, like so much of my life was built around how do I create safety, physical safety, having a security system, emotional safety, not connecting with certain kinds of people, professional safety, working in a very safe field, like all these kinds of structures helped me get a little weird inside of them, but I needed that safety, right? So some people need that. And so podcasting is super creative and the way you do it makes sense to me because of your background. And then I've been on people's shows where they don't research me. They don't know anything about me except for like my job title and what's on my website. And then we just dive in and they're like, I got no script. I got no notes. Let's just see what happens. And
I got like, bupkis here, lady. I got bupkis.
I would never do that. That's like, that freaks me out a little bit.
That scares the shit out of me, not having any kind of structure. Like I like to have the blurred lines.
Yes.
Because I never know where I'm going to go, but at least I know I've got somewhere that I can come back to.
Yes.
Where I've got like, okay, I've got like my baseline. Like, all right, Lyndsay, you might go, whoa, that was taking it a little too far. Come on back. And that's something that I would deal with, not just in podcast land, but in my business as well. I've done it forever in my personal life. So it's just one of those things when you've been through a lot of trauma and you have to be you feel like you have to be a certain way or act a certain way and you have to do all of these things and you should probably go to counseling here and you should probably read this and you should probably do that. Like I'm not everybody, right? Neither are you. We are all our own person and we are all our own colors. And to your friend's point, like she does not like purple. Okay. That's okay. Right. Something happened somewhere along the lines that she doesn't like purple, so she's not into it. And that's a metaphor for so many other things in life that we avoid no matter what it represents. And in creativity, you can throw out the stuff that's like, I know I do it with singing at night when nobody's home.
Oh, wow.
I crank up the music and I sing and it doesn't matter how I'm going to express. Because I know that I need that form of expression. And that's something that I think that is incredibly important for what you do. So can we talk a little bit before we run out of time? Because I want to talk about how you work with your clients in regards to this, because this is pretty awesome. Talk to us about how you coach your babies.
Yeah, sure. So most of my clients come to me and they already have a creative practice and they want to enrich it in a certain way, or they want to enrich other parts of their life and they want their creativity to be part of that. So here's an example. So I had a client who they wanted to eat better, but they didn't just want to have a boring plate. And so they found little Japanese lunch boxes, like a bento box in like multiple colors. And then they challenged themselves to make up their bento box every day for lunch and cut their vegetables into fun shapes and arrange them and have nice color contrast, like put a little garnish in there, whatever. So it was a cute, beautiful, sweet little lunch that they were excited to open every day. And that was how they brought their creativity into what for most people is kind of boring moment. Like you have your sandwich, you go back to work, right? This client made it fun and cute, and she challenged herself to think creatively about it. So that's when I coach people, we talk about motivation first. We try to figure out, why do you want to do this? What's motivating you? Is it coming from within? Is it coming from someone else? Is it motivated by fear, or is it a proactive motivation? Like, are you moving toward a big goal? And then we use that to decide, how are you going to bring creativity into working on this goal? And then sometimes people come to me and their creativity I'm not going to say it's died, but it's definitely taken a long nap. You know what I mean?
Nicely said.
It's taking a long nap and we want to raise it up from the bed. We want to get that creativity cooking again. And so then we think about, again, what are your motivations? Why do you need this? Getting in touch with what it's going to do for them to have more creative work in their life. Is it going to make you feel more excited? Is it going to give you more joy? Will it help you connect with others? Will it be something you can connect to your spirituality? So we look at those kinds of connections. And then we talk about, okay, well, what's your first step? If you're, let's say you're a painter and you're a Christian and you want to get more in touch with your spiritual pursuits, maybe that gives you some ideas about the kinds of things you want to paint. Or maybe you're like me and you're a quilter and you're a Buddhist and you want to get more in touch with your spiritual side. Well, then maybe I'm making a quilt or an embroidery piece about a Buddhist axiom that's important to me. So we try to find those connections because when people are trying something new, it's hard to just say, it'd be like if I just turned to you and said, you know what would really help your creative practice? If you went out and made a piece of exquisite jewelry. And you might be like, well, what the hell? Where am I supposed to get my tools and my beads and get some ideas and what
beads?
Outfit?
Where the hell are my beads?
Where are my beads? And we may not know, right? But instead I might say, Lyndsay, when you think about when you were a kid, what was your favorite creative thing to do? If I were coaching you, I'm not coaching you right now because that requires a certain agreement between us. But if I were coaching someone, I might ask them what did they enjoy in childhood, or what have they done previous that they really love that we might come back to, or what is accessible to them? Like, is there a place where you can take a class? Is there a friend that could teach you a technique? What's accessible and exciting to you? And then, for those of us with trauma, I'm very careful because I'm not a psychologist. My job is not to therapize anybody. And so when I work with clients who've had trauma, I am very intentional about making sure that they are in therapy, that they have medical help that I can't give them. But then within that structure, we talk about what is safe for you to work on right now. What feels attainable, or if something feels safe, like, can we walk it to that edge of safety and just like peer over a little bit and see if we can nudge it a little farther out, But it just depends on the client. It's a really tailored practice based on the unique individual's needs.
Yeah, because everybody is somebody. I say it all the time on the show. Everybody's getting bored with that line. I understand it, but it is legitimately true. Do not think that you are the same person that's sitting next to you and you need the same kind of care. I don't care if it's Western medicine, Eastern medicine, whatever the hell you believe in. You are different than everybody else. And so please do not put yourself in the same box as the person that's sitting next to you. Because like my sweetie and I, we're two completely different human beings. Do we agree upon 95% of the things that we believe in our life? Yes. Do we have the same political ideations? Yes, we do. Do we have the same all those things, big picture, check out. But when it comes to things that I want to do for my life and self-care, way different from him.
Yes.
Yeah, we believe the same. We feel the same. We enjoy the same things, yada, 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 yada. But when it comes to our care for ourselves and where we want to go within our lives, they're very, very different.
Yeah, I hear you.
And that is that. And he's not a creative, but yet he's in broadcast journalism. So he's creative on air. He is so incredibly brilliant with his mind. Very different from what we're doing here. But that is his creative outlet. Even though you wouldn't think doing news broadcast journalism would be creative the way in which he does it, it is. Because he has to. Because he doesn't want to be like everybody else. He doesn't want to give the news in the same way because everybody else is doing it that way.
Yeah,
and so
that's right.
We can work creatively no matter what you do for a living. Or if you don't have a living, you're a stay-at-home mom, whatever it is, or a stay-at-home dad. Quite frankly, we need more of the stay-at-home dads. I'm just going to go ahead and let you guys know. We all have to have our creative outlets no matter what that looks like. So it's awesome that you're bringing this to. And it's so funny when I first saw you, I was like, quilter.
Right?
I rolled my eyes. I'm like, oh, Jesus, fuck.
I could hear.
What the hell am I going to talk to this girl about? And instantaneously, I was like, I love her. Because it was not just, it's not about you being a quilter.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's about that. It's an element of what you do in your self-care that helps you with your creative process. Mine is singing, mine is this show, and mine is also in writing. So we all have our stuff. We just have to like give it some love. We give a lot of love to the shit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, that's a thing that a lot of clients come to me and they're like, I'm feeling like my creative practice is suffering. And I ask them, how much time are you spending on it?
None.
And when people say, well, I have, none. And I'm like, all right, well, then we're going to start with 15 minutes a day. Or what feels good to you? I'll say, what feels attainable to you? And some people say 3 hours. And I'm like, great. Based on you're not doing anything, I'm just wondering, what do you think is going to change so that you do 3 hours tomorrow? And then we dig a little deeper.
Okay, 3 minutes.
When they rein it in, that's right. They start with 3 minutes and that's okay. That's the thing. I have clients who very happily can say, tomorrow I'm going to do 2 hours, and they will do it because they have that intrinsic motivation. They are driven by that need to feel that flow state and get that joy. And I have other clients who say, I'm going to try to do 10 minutes a day this week, and they get half the days done. And neither client is better or worse than the other. They're each following their process. And some people like me, I'm a slow mover. It takes me a while to ease into things. Some people like you cannonball into things. We all move at different paces, and there's no good or bad about it, but people tend to judge themselves. And we live in a time where social media is so prevalent and widely used. And it is like a vehicle for comparison. And then we hold ourselves up to what everybody else is doing. And then we feel like shit about ourselves. And that's, man, I'm backing away from Instagram lately because I can't take the feeling of being less than all the time. I don't want to feel that. So that's one thing I wanted.
You need to stop following the Kardashians. I've been telling this to you for years.
Well, actually, so I unfollowed them last year because I was like, I cannot look at these people.
I can't with these people.
I love watching rich people be ridiculous, but there has to be a limit. I'm going to keep it to watching Below Deck and Real Housewives. And that's it. I don't need it.
See, so I'm not even that low, lady. I have never watched one of those dumb shows ever. I can't.
You're missing out, girl.
And to those of you, I know, to those of you who love him, God bless you. All right. Not a chance in my world. I live enough live, like TV, whatever the hell we call it. What do we call it?
It's streaming, maybe? I don't know.
It's reality TV. That's what it is.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Because now that's an age-old term, apparently, because I can't remember it. Yeah, I live enough reality. I don't need any more reality. And I certainly don't want to hear about you and your salad dressing. Like, I just don't care.
Yeah, I would much rather hang with people and watch them make things and use their brains and their hearts. And so, that's what I want to do. So when we think about quilting, like people listening, they may not have any idea what I mean when I say I'm a quilter. They might think that it's all like light blue and mauve, traditional patterns, from the 80s.
And you're in a rocking chair on a deck in North Carolina.
That's right.
Sipping your mint julep.
That's right. That's right. But none of those are true.
That's not true. She's right outside of Chicago, just chilling, quilting with no drinks.
There's I have my water. I've been getting into hop water, which is pretty delicious. But yeah, I'm making like super colorful, exuberant. I call it hyper scrappy postmodern maximalism. So hyper scrappy postmodern maximalism. So
she's also in the middle of a bunch of trademarking for that because no one's taking it.
No one. I'm not even worried about it.
Not one person. Don't worry. I think you're safe.
Well, hyper scrappy is all about I love to bring in all the different elements. I want every color and every texture and every pattern. So a lot of my quilts just have everything thrown at them. And I have this kind of frenetic energy, visual energy. I move slow because I have chronic pain. And so I'm not frenetically moving through my studio, but my quilts have the energy. And maximalism, that's that devotion to every color, every texture, every pattern. I want my quilts to kind of be a little bit of an explosion in your brain when you see them. and I want them to talk to you. I want you to have feelings about them. And then also you can cuddle under them. So it's like you get the best of both worlds. So when I think about my great grandma, she was going blind in her 90s and she was still crocheting every day. And she didn't care what color yarn she had. She just needed contrast so that she could see the two different colors of yarn
coming together.
relating to each other, right? And so her crocheted blankets were bananas. Like they made no sense, but they were also beautiful because she knew that it felt good to move her hands in a rhythmic fashion and use her brain, even though she was going blind and she was tired. But so the quilts the crocheted blankets that came out were just off the rails. But I have one and I love it so much. And it came from that beautiful urge to create,
Yeah. Well, it's awesome. And I expect a beautiful blue and white and mauve quilt sent to me.
Excellent. I'm going to puff it. I'm going to fill it extra puffy so that it's like big and fluffy for you.
Oh
Never. I would never.
Please don't do that. All right. So real quick, let's talk about your book. We've got Chronic Babe 101, How to Craft an Incredible Life Beyond Illness. Let's talk real quick about that before we hit the dusty trail.
Yeah, sure. So, we've talked about the fact that I have chronic illness stuff. I've had chronic pain and chronic illness for 26 years. And after the first few years, I started to really figure out what I was doing. With a lot of help from other people. And I started doing online advocacy as Chronic Babe. And it was all about teaching young women how to be babes, no matter how sick they were. That's where I was coming from. I was in my 30s. Today, if I were remaking the site, it would not be as gendered. But at the time, there were no outlets for women to share their voices when it came to having chronic illness. Like, there were no websites. When I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia, they gave me a trifold brochure. That's what I had. I had nothing. So when we think about what was available back then, I needed what I wanted to read. I needed like a punk rock, weird ass website to talk to me about how to live well with pain. I didn't need this trifold brochure with like ancient people probably in their 50s like I am today. But at the time I was like, who are these old people? These are not me. So I made this thing called Chronic Babe. And through that work for 16 years, I advocated for people like us who live with chronic pain and chronic illness. And out of that came this book that's really all about helping people learn how to just create the life that's going to feel the best to them, even if they're sick.
Yeah.
And I can say that it's possible because I've done it. Your mileage may vary. Like other people's journeys are not going to be my journey. But I did it. I managed to make a life despite having many chronic illnesses, PTSD, asthma, Raynaud's, fibromyalgia, IBS, a bunch of stuff, just basically like word salad of chronic stuff, right? But I figured it out. It's not exactly what I thought my life was going to be like, but I've made the best life that I could out of what I was handed. So for folks who have not figured that out yet, Chronic Babe 101 is it's like my love letter to people with chronic pain and chronic illness, and just like really helping them be sexy and vibrant and fun and adventurous and creative and loving and connected and all those things, even if they're sick, Today, if I were going to rewrite that book, I would definitely write it from a more trauma-informed perspective, because knowing what I know now about how trauma, in a lot of ways created a lot of the chronic stuff that I live with. There's lots of ways to heal trauma. It won't ever leave me, but I've learned how to live with it and feel better with it. And so I think we need more resources that are trauma informed for people with chronic illness and chronic pain, because when we neglect to care for some of those other sources of struggle, then we're not treating the whole patient. So anyway, that's like my little soapbox moment. I just think we need more of that kind of work out there. So that's the thing that I'm currently researching myself. But yeah, so many of us with chronic pain and chronic illness have come from really intense, shitty backgrounds. And it's not that everything is in our head, but there are parts of our chronic illness and chronic pain experience that are generated from emotional experiences. Sure. And so when we can pay attention to that and honor it, we can feel somewhat better and have like fewer symptoms sometimes when we're treating the mental side of the chronic pain or chronic illness. Again, I just want to emphasize that I'm not saying it's all in people's heads, because that's bullshit. That's not how I am. People said that to me a lot when I was younger. And I was like, well, tell that to the rest of my body.
Yeah. I experienced the same. And so many women did, and particularly.
So many women did. And they still do today, but it's less common. But, and to come back full circle, when we think about creativity, that book that I wrote was a creative act born out of suffering. I made something out of my suffering. People might not think of that as a creative act, but I created something that didn't exist to help other people. And it's a tool that helps other people use their creativity to create a lifestyle that they previously haven't experienced. So that's just another way to remind people that we can use our creativity in so many different ways. And some of that, if it's to help people, then I feel like I have fulfilled my mission. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's why you're here, to help explain and teach us more ways that we can cope, how we can. Like, even when I started, like, all of these coping mechanisms that I created at such a young age to get me through not understanding what my little brain was dealing with at such a young age, and having to be an adult so young. I'm like an adult at 9. You're like, whoa, okay, that's weird. I probably should not be an adult at this young of an age. And it has aged me by being this old soul, by being this person that I'm exhausted. I'm like, I was going through stuff that people in their 40s should be going through when I was 9. Like, this is nutso stuff.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I started doing this and meeting people like yourself that it really, not unhinged, but it kind of like lifted this veil of, I did not know all of that stuff was going on. And so here we are, and we're doing the thing. And we're doing it together. And I am so grateful for having met you. And you know that.
Thank you so much.
The colorful joy that you've brought into my life and to our listeners as well. And Jenni and I literally could do like 17 episodes further. And we talked about starting our own podcast on our meet and greet, because we have so many things that we want to talk about in a colorful way, square by square. That we can get to make a more colorful place for us all to live in. But we're both here. So you are exclusively invited to share this living creatively and scrappy VIP pain journey together. Let's get to the heart of how to heal with you by my side and by Jenni's side. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Jenni. It's been an absolute wonderful, colorful trip.
Oh, thank you. The joy is mine. Thank you for joining me on this colorful journey today.
I can't wait to see where we're going to go. Welcome to the Pain Game Podcast, guys. This is what we do here. Let's connect and hear stories of strength and grit. I am here. Jenni is here. We are here to provide a safe place to be vulnerable, to be honest, to be colorful, and share your powerfully amazing stories. So please follow the Pain Game Podcast wherever you digest your podcast content. We will be there. Visit us at thepaingamepodcast.com and follow us on all the socials. Thanks for listening, my little VIPs. Catch you on the other side.